Hello and welcome to another episode of the Power Law Investor. Today is the 9th of October 2025, a Thursday. And as I'm making this video, Bitcoin is trading a little below 121K and Kaspa is trading at a little below 7.5 cents. And in today's video, I want to lay out what my framework for evaluating my Kaspa and other investments in the crypto world are for the next few months, specifically then talking about Kaspa, and then how I plan on playing this. And I wanted to give a little more color to this aspect of my strategy, given the response that I received from my last video, in which I talked about selling the majority of my Kaspa and waiting to get in at a lower point. Okay. So first, let me just talk quickly about my PAI system that I've developed and why I think it is so powerful. It's a value that's generated in real time, looking at the historical data for that particular asset. So it's tuned to a particular asset. So in this case, it will be Kaspa. The value ranges from 0, which is the lowest relative price that we've seen in its history, and the highest value is 1, which looks at the highest prices that we've received, right? And basically, the bluer it gets, the closer it is to 0, the better a time it is to buy. So in this case, for example, you can see in this chart that it's dark blue at these certain time points, where if we had bought, or if I had bought at those time points, unfortunately I hadn't developed it until quite recently, last couple of months or so, it would be a much lower buying opportunity. Now, again, it's not a perfect system. It's not calling the bottom exactly. I don't know of anything that can actually do that, but it does give us a much better opportunity to buy at lower prices relative to its own history and increase the chances of being profitable. And so the way I have further conducted this analysis is by looking at how much time it spends in each of these different price zones. That's what you can see over here in this bar graph. And then below it is the cumulative time, which means that for here, between below 0.2, it spent about 22% of the time, which means that above it, it spent 78% of the time. And those are odds that I like. If I want to buy something, I want to buy it in the lowest quarter of the time, lowest quarter of the prices that we've seen, so that I have a lot more headroom for me to sell. Of course, that's not going to be perfect. It could go lower, but at least it's a great starting point, right? And the way I would use this is the lower it goes, the more I would want to buy. And now for what those values are currently, it's about 0.62 or 6.2 cents for hitting a risk value of a PAI value of 0.2, right? And currently the value is 7.2 cents, and we're looking at a PAI value of 0.27. So the strategy that I talked about in my last video was that I had sold the majority of my Kaspa and I'd be looking to get in at the 0.2 PI level or lower. And so the risk that I'm taking with this approach is that we may hit alt season before that and the prices really take off. On the flip side, I may be able to reduce my cost basis down by 20, 30, 40%, right? And like many of you, there is something about Kaspa that is very appealing in terms of both the technology and the philosophy and the spirit of the project. But ultimately, I want this to be a profitable venture, right? And I don't want to be married to one particular altcoin and say, this is the one that is going to make me mega rich. I want to express my opinion and my strategy in a way that gives me the best risk adjusted return. Does that mean I could get it wrong? Yes, which is why this is not financial advice and everyone should do their own research. So for me, I'm be looking to get in again, like I said, at a PAI value of 0.2 or lower. And I don't know if we're necessarily going to get that or not. But I do think now it is a good time to have more of my funds in Bitcoin, because the way I think the market is going to go is that Bitcoin will go up first, particularly in October, and then that will translate into what I think will be a rather shortened alt season, starting off with Ethereum and then going on to the lower market caps, eventually Kaspa. So Just to quickly bring me back to why I think we are going to have this takeoff in Q4 2025 for Bitcoin. Here is the power law for Bitcoin. It is the trend line on a log graph with an incredibly good power law fit or incredibly good regression fit. What happens is that every 4 years, typically in the fourth quarter, we have a jump up in this residual, which means we go way above this trend line. If we follow the same pattern, we have been having less jumps, relatively speaking. As the asset class has grown, the volatility likely is going to go down. And I expect a value for Bitcoin between 150 to 200K. The logic then is, okay, if Bitcoin is taking off, what has also happened is that it translates into Ethereum and then translates into the other market cap coins. So all that money goes chasing for more and more returns, and you have incredible gains taking place in a short period of time. That being said, I think things are a little different. Things are rhyming with what happened in the past, but in this case, things are going to be a little different. And my hypothesis and the way I think this will go is that we will get an increase in Bitcoin prices, but I don't think we're going to get those crazy legendary prices of Bitcoin going up to 250 or 300K. I think 200K on the outside, but I think closer between 150 to maybe 170 if that happens. And that would be a great return. But what I think is going to happen in October is I think that sort of jump that Bitcoin is about to make will drive a lot of the price action, and a lot of the liquidity will be sucked in from other coins into Bitcoin. So to clarify my strategy that I talked about last time, I'm not moving the majority of my sale from Kaspa and just holding it in USDT or in cash. I'm actually have bought Bitcoin with that, right? And so the bet is that Bitcoin will do relatively better than the rest of the altcoin market, at least for the upcoming month or so. And so let me show you a few charts that sort of show you what I'm looking at, right? Here is what we have others, which is the altcoin market, I think excluding the top 10, divided by Bitcoin, right? And as you see, it dropped down, but then has been increasing and then has dropped down again. And I think this continues onwards. So this is sort of the opposite of Bitcoin dominance, which is a term you may have heard. That is what proportion of the overall crypto market is held in Bitcoin. So what I think is going to happen is that this downtrend over here will continue in October. I think there's going to be a lot of uncertainty around the crypto market. Everyone is ready for alt season. I just don't see it happening quite right now. So I think being Bitcoin heavy is the way to go, which is what my strategy has been. And I'll have the chance to jump into these altcoins when I think the market is going to turn around, which for me, with what I've developed and the analytics that I've created, will be around the 0.2 mark for Kaspa. Now, again, I think Kaspa is a rather unique coin. I think it has these great advantages of being decentralized and being very rapid. But I do think that it has not been adopted as fast as we would have expected, which is why the power law that we have for Kaspa is no longer being followed now. We may have other explanations going on, of course, but that adoption is my sense that is what it was causing it to follow that power law, and something has changed from that, and especially over the last year or so. So here's what's happening with others in Bitcoin. Another way of looking at this is looking at total 3, which is the market cap of all the crypto world except for Bitcoin and Ethereum, minus the USDT, which is the biggest stable coin, divided by Bitcoin, right? So the higher this number goes, the more money is being pushed into alts. The lower it goes, the more of the money is into Bitcoin. As you can see, we had a peak over here in September, and now it's dropping down. And I think it continues to drop down. Again, that is based on historical patterns, what we've seen in the past. I won't really go into that too much into this video over here, but you guys can go back and take a look at that and notice what happens in October. My feeling is that with Bitcoin being more and more institutionally adopted, particularly what's happening with the gold market, as you guys have seen how that has taken off, I think some percentage of the capital rolls into Bitcoin. I think people are more, institutions and large investors are more wary of getting into things like Ethereum and the smaller altcoins, which we are into. And so I think Bitcoin is going to benefit from that. Eventually, though, I do think that is going to turn around. But before we talk about that, I also want to show you one more thing, which is how much weakness Kaspa has been showing since about September of last year, which is when KRC20 with the meme coins, etc., on the Kaspa network was introduced. Now, again, this is not my opinion. This is data, right? This is looking at the value of Kaspa divided by the value of Bitcoin. And you can see that it's been in a downtrend, right? And if you believe in support and resistances, you can see now, hey, this is a pretty critical resistance point over here, right? Because let's expand this. We're right at this line over here. And if we go lower, well, the last time that we went down to something like this was way back in July 23, right? So that's a long time. So what that means is Bitcoin has been a better spot to be in given what has transpired in terms of price action. Now, again, I don't want to be married to a particular coin. The goal here is power law investor, not power law Kaspa lover. I do think Kaspa has some unique qualities, and I do think it's going to do great in the long term. But right now, I think the most efficient strategy is to bet on this trend continuing, particularly with what I'm seeing in the gold market. That market is really flashing a lot of warning signs that people are moving into different away from the dollar into assets that are going to maintain their purchasing power. And I think some section of that is definitely going to flow into Bitcoin, and that's where I think the opportunity is going to be. I do think this lasts for about a month or so, right? So I think by about halfway through November, end of October, excuse me, we'll be in a position where things are going to start turning. And my suspicion is by that time, we're going to be considerably lower in terms of the Kaspa price. I think we're probably below 6.5 cents at that point. And I could be wrong. And like I said in my previous video, if I see the price really taking off and alt season hitting quicker than I expected, then I'm going to sell the BTC that I'm holding and then buy some Bitcoin. I buy some Kaspa from that. But again, if I do get the chance to get more Kaspa at a lower price, right now that risk reward feels reasonable for me to take. And so the clarification that I'd like to add to that next video is that it's not just being held in cash, but moved into Bitcoin, right? And so here's that same PAI graph for you guys. I also wanted to explore what it would look like in terms of Bitcoin, right? And so you can see the PAI in terms of Bitcoin is at 0.213. So an increase in the Bitcoin price relative to the Kaspa price would push that value down, although the actual 0.2 values are a little different. As you can see, you spend almost 30% of the time below the 0.2 zone when we are looking at in terms of Bitcoin, right? And for those of us that do believe that the dollar and global currencies as a whole will have to devalue, looking at things from the Satoshi valuation or the Bitcoin valuation is a useful way to look at it. You can also do it in terms of gold, etc. So I hope that gives us a good picture. I will be, of course, making regular videos and keeping you guys in touch with how my strategy is changing and when I decide to jump into something or change my direction plan. Please do sign up at thepowerlawinvestor.com. I haven't sent out any emails as yet, but I am building that list, and that's where my subscribers will get the first information. It's free for now, so all it takes is your email. And also, give the video a thumbs up. And if you have any questions, please let me know. But again, to summarize, the plan is to continue to hold the Bitcoin that I've generated from selling my majority, not all, of my Kaspa stake. I think we do get the opportunity to get in, and Kaspa continues to show weakness. But I think this is ultimately going to be an absolutely great investing opportunity for those of us that are looking to really, build upon a strong financial future in terms of Kaspa. I do think it's going to take longer than expected. And I do think that the alt season, when it happens, will give us good returns in Kaspa, but they're not necessarily going to be the life-changing returns. My expectation is that we end up with a max price of Kaspa between 30 and 50 cents. That would be a pretty good return from where we are right now. So that would be a 4x, maybe a 5x from where we are right now. And I look forward to keeping you guys on board in that journey. But I think also the real money is going to be made after we have the bear market. We'll have the chance to pick up Kaspa at some great prices, and then as crypto adoption really goes mainstream, I think the value of Kaspa gets broadcasted to a much wider audience without this time pressure that it has to be hit within this particular alt season. So that's where we are right now. I will keep you guys in touch, and please let me know if you have any comments and questions, and I try and answer as many of those as I can. All the best, and see you in the next one.